The language of nobody. Why English is the way it is.
Why is there a K in night? Why do we eat pork but raise a pig? Why does English spell one sound 7 different ways? Your struggle is not your failure. Every one of these is a scar, left by an invasion, an accident, or a printing press.
Chapter 1. An Unlikely Language.
English is spoken by around 1.5 billion people, but only a quarter of them learned it as children. Most conversations in English today happen between two people who are not native speakers. It is also a mess. 5 words, spelled almost identically, pronounced 5 different ways. No other major European language treats its learners like this. The question is not whether English is difficult, it is why. No one designed English. It was never planned. It is a building that has been rebuilt, extended, and half demolished for 1,500 years by people who did not consult one another and who mostly could not read. At its root, English is a Germanic language. Its closest living relative is Frisian, spoken today by a few 100,000 people on the coast of the Netherlands. Its grandmother tongue was spoken in Denmark. The oldest words are the ones you use most. Man, wife, child, house, eat, drink, sleep, work, love, hate. Every one of them is Anglo-Saxon. They have survived every invasion, unchanged in meaning for 1,000 years. And yet, more than half of English vocabulary is borrowed. From French, from Latin, from Greek, and from over 300 other languages. English did not invent most of its words. It took them.
Chapter 2. The First English.
In the early 5th century, Rome withdrew its legions from Britain. The island was left to its Celtic-speaking inhabitants and to the sea. Across the North Sea, others were watching. They came from the coasts of what is now Denmark and northern Germany. Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. They did not come as tourists. Over generations, they pushed the Britons west into Wales and Cornwall and took the land. The Angles gave their name to the land, Engleland, the land of the Angles, and to the tongue they spoke, Englisk. When you say the word English, you are naming a tribe that crossed the sea 16 centuries ago. Old English is not old-fashioned English. It is a foreign language. It had 3 grammatical genders, 5 cases, and letters we no longer use. A modern speaker cannot read it. Not one sentence. One poem survives from that world, Beowulf, 3,000 lines in a single manuscript. In 1731, the library that held it caught fire. The book was thrown from a window. Its edges are still burned. There was no second copy. Old English had a letter for the sound thith. It was called thorn. Printers later had no type for it, so they used the closest shape they had, the letter Y. That is the only reason we write ye old shop. It was never pronounced ye, it was always thee. Christian missionaries brought the Latin alphabet, and with it the first crack in English spelling. 26 letters were made to carry more than 40 sounds. That mismatch has never been fixed.
Chapter 3. The Men from the North.
In the year 793, raiders from Scandinavia attacked the monastery of Lindisfarne. It was the beginning of 2 centuries of Viking invasion, and of the strangest thing that ever happened to the English language. The Vikings did not only raid, they settled. Half of England came under Danish law, the Danelaw, and there 2 peoples lived side by side, speaking 2 languages that were similar enough to be almost understood. Norse words are hiding in your English, and they have a fingerprint. If a word begins with the sound skuk, it is almost certainly Viking. Sky, skin, skirt, skull, skill. The Anglo-Saxons had no such sound at the start of words. Here is the proof. Shirt and skirt are the same word. One arrived with the Anglo-Saxons, one with the Vikings. English kept both and gave each a different job. The language did not choose, it hoarded. The Vikings gave English the word window. In Old Norse it was vindauga, the wind eye. A hole in the wall through which the wind looked in. Every time you say window, you are speaking Old Norse. But the Vikings left something far stranger. They, them, their. Languages almost never borrow their pronouns. English did. The word for other people came from the invaders. And something else happened. When 2 peoples must understand one another, endings are the first thing to go. Scholars believe the contact with Norse helped strip English of its cases and its genders. Your grammar is easy because 2 armies could not conjugate at each other.
Chapter 4. The Language of the Masters.
In 1066, William of Normandy crossed the Channel and took England in a single afternoon of battle. He did not speak English, neither did his lords, his judges, or his priests. For the next 300 years, England was ruled in French. English did not die. It went underground. It became the language of the field, the kitchen, and the barn. French became the language of the court, the law, and the table. For 3 centuries, class had a sound. And here is the most famous scar in the English language. The animal in the field is a pig, an Anglo-Saxon word. The meat on the plate is pork, from the French pork. The peasant raised it. The lord ate it. It happens again and again. Cow becomes beef. Sheep becomes mutton. Calf becomes veal. Deer becomes venison. Every time, the living animal is English, and the cooked meat is French. It is also a mess. 5 words, spelled almost identically, pronounced 5 different ways. No other major European language treats its learners like this. The question is not whether English is difficult, it is why. The neat story comes from a novel written in 1819. The truth is slower. Those French words existed for both animal and meat at first. Only later, over a century or more, did quietly assign each word its place. Scar is real. The wound took longer to form. Lawyers faced a problem. Which language binds? So they used both.
Will and testament, breaking and entering, law and order, aid and abet.
English legal language still says everything twice in two languages 600 years later. This gave English its great gift and its great trap. Ask is Anglo-Saxon, it is warm. Question is French, it is neutral. Interrogate is Latin, it is cold. 3 words, 1 meaning, 3 completely different social temperatures. Look at any academic essay. The long words are Latin. The short words are Anglo-Saxon. This is why formal English feels foreign even to native speakers, because half of it is. By 1400, the king spoke English again. Geoffrey Chaucer wrote his poetry in it, not in French. The language of the barn had climbed back into the palace, but it came back carrying 10,000 French words in its pockets.
Chapter 5. The Great Disorder.
In 1476, a merchant named William Caxton set up England's first printing press. For the first time, spelling had to be decided. Someone had to choose, and the choices were made almost at random. Caxton's typesetters were Flemish. They spelled English words as their own eyes expected. The word ghost gained an H, becoming ghost, because that is how it looked in Flemish. It has kept that silent H for 500 years. But something far larger was happening at the same time. Between about 1400 and 1700, the long vowels of English simply moved. Every single one of them, slowly, silently, and for reasons still argued about today.
Whose?
Before the shift, house was pronounced hoose, bite was pronounced beat, meat was pronounced mate. The English of Chaucer would sound, to your ear, more like Dutch than like English. And here's the tragedy. The printing press froze English spelling in the 15th century. The pronunciation kept moving for another 200 years. The writing stopped, the speaking did not. English spelling is a photograph of a language that has since walked away. The silent E at the end of a word was once pronounced. Nama, Timma. When the shift came, the final vowel fell silent, but the letter stayed on the page, doing nothing, forever.
König.
Was pronounced. Night was spoken kniekt, with the K sounded, and the GH rasped in the throat, like the German Nacht. Both sounds died. Both letters stayed. You are reading the ghost of a pronunciation. Worse still, some silent letters were never pronounced at all. Scholars added a B to det, to show it came from Latin debitum. They added a B to doot. Today we write det and doubt, and we curse them because a scholar wanted to look clever in 1550. The word island is Anglo-Saxon, Igland. It has nothing to do with Latin. But it looked like the French isle, so someone inserted an S that had never belonged there. Every English child now misspells it. Every English child is right, and history is wrong. France has an academy to govern its language. Spain has one. English never did. There was no one with the authority to fix the spelling, and there still is not. The chaos is permanent because no one owns the language.
Chapter 6. The Plunder of Rome.
In the Renaissance, English writers decided their language was too poor for philosophy.
So they took thousands of words from Latin and Greek. Their opponents mocked these borrowings as inkhorn terms, words that smelled of the inkpot.
Some were ridiculed and died. Others became so ordinary that no one hears them anymore. Education, emphasis, skeleton, atmosphere, all were once dismissed as pretentious foreign clutter. This is why Latin roots are your secret weapon. Learn one root and you unlock a dozen words. Port, to carry, import, export, transport, portable, support. English hid an entire system inside its hardest vocabulary. And here is a gift for Spanish speakers that almost no one tells you. Those long, frightening academic English words are Latin. You already own them. Education, necessity, considerable. They are harder for a native English child than for you. The gift has a trap. Actually does not mean actualmente. Embarrassed does not mean embarazada. The same Latin seed grew into different plants. When a word looks too familiar, look twice. English is borrowed from more than 300 languages. Shampoo and jungle from Hindi, chocolate and tomato from Nahuatl, algebra and alcohol, safari from Swahili, tycoon from Japanese. English never refused a word.
Chapter 7. The Words of an Actor.
It is often said that Shakespeare invented 1,700 words. Be careful. What the record shows is that he is the first surviving writer to use them. He may have coined some. He certainly heard many in the street. What he did do was stranger and greater. He turned nouns into verbs and adjectives into nouns, freely, as no one had dared. English became flexible in his hands. That flexibility is why the language still bends today. Break the ice. A wild goose chase. In a pickle. These phrases entered English through his plays and left them. You have used his words without ever reading a line of him. In 1611, 47 scholars produced the King James Bible. It was written to be read aloud, to people who could not read at all. Its rhythms entered ordinary speech and never left. But no book ever decided how English is spoken. Kings, poets, and scholars proposed. Farmers, sailors, servants, and children disposed. English has always been shaped, in the end, by people who never intended to shape anything.
Chapter 8. The language escapes.
Then England began to take the world. Wherever its ships went, the language went too, carried by soldiers, merchants, missionaries, and administrators. English spread not because it was beautiful, but because of power. In 1828, Noah Webster published an American dictionary and deliberately simplified the spelling. Color lost its U, center turned around. He wanted a language independent of Britain. He got one. There is no longer one English.
There is Indian English, Nigerian English,
Singaporean English, Caribbean English. Each has its own grammar, its own music, and its own hundreds of millions of speakers.
None of which English has a rich history.
Your accent is not an error. It is information. It tells the listener where you are from. Intelligibility is the goal, not imitation. Most of the people you will speak English with do not sound British either. For every native speaker of English, there are 3 people who learned it. The center of gravity has already shifted. The language is changing, right now, in the mouths of people who were not born to it.
Chapter 9. The language of nobody.
So look again at what defeated you. The K in night is a sound that died in 1400. The word pork is a Norman lord at dinner. Debt has a B because a scholar wished to seem learned. None of it is your fault. English was invaded, colonized, borrowed from, misspelled, and rebuilt again and again by people who were not born speaking it. Vikings, Normans, Flemish printers, Latin scholars. The language has never belonged to one people. There is no academy. There is no owner. Every generation that learns English changes it a little. You are not a guest in this language. You are the next chapter of it. 1,500 years ago, a few thousand people crossed a cold sea carrying a language nobody else wanted. Today, 1.5 billion people speak it, and most of them learned it as you are learning it, is the language of nobody, which means it is also yours.
Thank you for watching.